And so we're talking about homes.
Oh, yes. Okay, when we began the first segment, we were talking about the cabinet, and one of our guests kept talking about
Housing.
housing,
And it's important.
and its
With
importance.
17 million deficit.
Deficit. But we're talking housing now, not just in Nigeria, we're talking housing internationally. You want to own a home. So we're talking international homes and realtor, and we have a guest joining us from our Abuja studio, a Siri Ohimo, Chief Operating Officer of International Homes and Realty. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Let's talk about your organization, International Homes and Realty. Tell us about what do you do and what's it about?
Well, Internet Homes and Realty Limited is a real estate company that buys, manages, and sells American real estate. We help the Nigerian investor have access to the US real estate market in what has been called the biggest real estate investment opportunity of our lifetime. And we are a group of lawyers, licensed real estate agents, accountants, inspectors, and valuers. And as a team, we have over 70 years buying and selling American real estate. And we do have houses from 10 million naira.
Okay, why should Nigerians be
No, no,
interested?
before we even get to why we should be interested, see, you have houses from 10 million naira. That's what he said. That
Absolutely.
means,
Yeah.
that means anybody can own a house there. But what's the process? What's your process?
Well, the first thing we'd like to ask our investors or intending investors would be, what is the purpose and what is your budget? Of course, with the purpose, we could tell you where to buy, or with your budget, we could tell you also where to buy. Once we get that done, we'll take your email address and we'll send you houses within your price range. And once you see a house you like, there are going to be pictures and all the details, how much the rent is, if there's a tenant in the property. And if there's no tenant in the property, what the rent would be when we do get you a tenant. So you have every information to make an informed decision. Once you pick up a property that you want to purchase, we go to work for you. We get a licensed inspector to go into that property and check the property. Now, these inspectors are licensed in the state they're in by the government, and they have a background in construction. So they actually would go ahead and check your plumbing, they check your electricals, they check your heating and AC, and they make sure that the house is structurally sound. They do all of that and come up with a report. Now, the report is supposed to stand the test of time. So if they tell us, for example, that the roof is great, and 2 days down the line, your roof caves in, you can actually sue them, and they could lose their license. So they don't mess around. I mean, they're strict, and whatever they put on paper is good. And based on that, we can decide this is a fantastic house, let's go ahead and purchase it, or this is a bad house, let's just chalk it. And real quick, I think I can show you this. This is a copy of a sample of an inspection report. I don't know if you can see this, but it is pretty bulky, okay? It is pretty bulky. It is for a tiny house, but you can see how big it is.
Yes.
Because they're going to check everything, the big ticket items and the small ticket items, even the door handle to make sure it works. So it's based on this that we can decide this is a fantastic house, it's structurally sound, and we're going to get you this house. Let's say everything checks out and this house is good. At that point, our lawyers will step in and check on your title. We check on your deed, your C of O. We'll make sure that there are no liens, no encumbrances on your title, and that your title is clean and clear and free of every cloud. And once that checks out and everything is good and dandy, we move on to the next, which is the closing. Basically, the closing is, you take your keys, you give me my keys, you take your money, and we're done. And that is a fantastic part of it. The next thing would be that we ensure that there's a tenant in that property. Actually, about 80% of our houses have tenants. And if you do purchase a house without a tenant, we give you a 60-day guarantee that we will tenant your house within 60 days, or we will pay your rent until we're able to do that. The reason we can make that boast is because we work with the American government on a program called Section 8. If you earn below $25,000 in America, you're considered a low-income earner. And you could technically petition the US government, and they would pay your rent. They could pay 70%, 90%, 100%. It just depends on your situation. And we work with that group. So whenever we have a house, we send it to them. There's a long list of people waiting. Everybody wants the government to pay their rent. So there are always people. And we usually will get a tenant for a property within 4 to 6 weeks maximum. So we usually would get you a tenant. There's always a tenant in your property. And once you have a tenant, see, purchasing the property, anybody can travel to America and get a property. That's the easy part. The difficult part is the management of that property, and that's one of the key things or key services that we offer you. When you purchase a property, we make sure that the tenants are great. We make sure that things work in the house. If there are things to be fixed, we get our contractors to fix all of that for you. We make sure that if there's a tenant to be kicked out, for example, we kick the tenant out. The good thing is that we do all our due diligence to make sure that we don't even get you a bad tenant in the first place. And so your money comes regularly, which is great for an investor.
Yes. Fantastic. You've just laid out your entire procedures.
Yes. And there's still more to come.
I think Yomi asked a question earlier about why.
Why should Nigerians want to buy houses in the U.S.?
Wow. That's a fantastic question, actually. Why should Nigerians want to buy houses in America? Why shouldn't Nigerians want to buy houses in America? What is happening in America has been called the biggest real estate investment opportunity of our lifetime. American real estate has never been this cheap. Okay, and I understand when people would say, it's a different country. The world is a global village, and there are no boundaries anymore. Okay, there are no boundaries. The word is diversification. Okay, you can't just put all your eggs in one basket and sit down and guard it. I will be speaking to China in a minute before talking to somebody in Nigeria. And maybe I just called the number and, one of the services will say number does not exist. But I just called China. So there are no boundaries, there are no lines. And if an investment is great, you should invest in it. Now, the reason is that with the economic crisis in America, the prices of real estate tumbled. Right now, you can get a house that sold for, say, $100,000 a couple of years ago for about 50, 60, 70,000. And so it's a fantastic opportunity. The return on investment right now is somewhere between 9 to 18%, depending on the state. And then the capital appreciation of these properties is somewhere between 150 to 250% within the next 3 to 5 years. So any way you look at it, if you purchase a house for, say, 10 million naira, for example, in the next 3 to 5 years, you're looking at, say, worst case scenario, 100% even, you're looking at that property being 20 million. But let's go with the 150, the lowest of the rung. You're looking at somewhere between 25 million. That in itself is fantastic. So there's so many opportunities in the real estate market in the US. A lot of the Chinese, the Europeans, they're all buying American real estate. And it's amazing that most Nigerians have not caught up with the fact that it's a good investment opportunity.
Okay.